Hi everyone, this is Steve Stewart. Thanks for joining me on my famous grave tours, where I visit the cemeteries, grave sites, memorials, and final resting places of the people who have touched our lives. They may be gone, but they're not forgotten. Hi friends, how is everyone? Hope you're well. I'm here in another beautiful cemetery, and I saw these angel wings and I thought this might be a good place to start. This cemetery is located in San Bernardino, California, and it's called the Mountain View Cemetery. And I was here last year to visit a couple of famous graves, and I missed a few, so I thought I'd come back today and show you a couple more. So let's go see who we can find today. So first I'm going to head to the gravesite of Wild West legend James Earp. Just inside the front gates, I'm going to make the very first left. Then I'm going to drive a short distance and make a right. And then I'll follow the road around to the left and park somewhere in front of the mausoleum that you'll see on the right-hand side. Earp's grave is just across the street in the Bubba section. Now, I haven't been into the Mountain View Mausoleum that you see behind me. Looks very historic. And I'm here a little bit too early this morning. It's 8 o'clock. They just opened. And so I'm not going to be able to go in today. But I'll be back another time. It's not very far from where I live in Palm Springs. Now, this is the Bubba, I guess it's Bubba section. This is where one of the famous Earp brothers is buried. Now, I don't know if you could see behind me, but this is an older historic cemetery, and there's lots of beautiful headstones and gravestones scattered throughout the park. It's just off of the cemetery itself is just off of the freeway, off of the 210 Foothill Freeway. You exit at Mountain View, and then it's just a couple of lights. I believe it was just a couple of stoplights from Mountain View. Okay, so here is the grave of James Cooksey Earp. He was the oldest brother of the Earp brothers. He was a U.S. Marshal, just like his brothers, and I don't believe he was at the OK Corral shootout that became so famous. There have been many movies about Tombstone and the OK Corral, TV shows over the years, especially if you're my age. As I've said many times before, I grew up watching Westerns. That was pretty much a staple back for baby boomers. Movies, TV shows, all about the Old West, and so the name Earp is very familiar to me. I don't know if you're younger, maybe not so much. But still, interesting part of American history. So now Adelia Edwards Earp is also buried here. I believe this was one of the Earp brothers' sisters. I believe this was James's sister. And I'll turn the camera around and focus a little bit more on her grave as well. According to James Earp's Find a Grave page, Adelia Douglas Earp Edwards is his youngest sister. But his wiki page only lists 2 other sisters and not Adelia. So I'm not sure which is incorrect. If any of you watching this know, please leave a comment down in the comments section. For those of you who are interested in seeing a little bit more of the cemetery, I'm going to head back to the front gates. And just before I reach the front gates on the right-hand side, I'm going to show you the private mausoleum of guitarist Randy Rhodes. Rhodes was a heavy metal guitarist with both Quiet Riot and Ozzy Osbourne. And I just happened to be talking the other day with my son-in-law, whose family lives just a few miles from this cemetery and where he grew up. And he was a huge Ozzy Osbourne fan. So when Randy Rhodes tragically died in 1982, my son-in-law Bobby and his friends would go to the cemetery to visit his gravesite. And I didn't realize it until Bobby informed me that when he was first interred at the cemetery, he didn't have his own private mausoleum. He was actually interred in the mausoleum that I was just standing in front of. And Bobby and his friends would go there quite often, and he said that they would run into Randy's mom, who was also there, they said, all the time. And apparently she was very happy that so many of his fans made the trip to visit his final resting place. So I thought you might just be interested in hearing that personal story about Randy and his mom and the two different locations where he's been interred here in this cemetery. I did a tour of Randy Rhodes' mausoleum here at the cemetery last year, so if any of you are interested in seeing that, I'll put the link down below this video. Now I'm going to head out of this cemetery and I'm going to head over to the Hermosa Cemetery in the city of Colton, which is only about 10-15 minutes away. I'm not sure exactly how many miles, but it's really not that far. Both of the cemeteries are located here in San Bernardino County. As you can see, I'm here today at Hermosa Cemetery in Colton, California. It's a very small cemetery, just one big circular drive. I'll do a drive-through so you can get a better idea of the size. I'm entering the gates here on the north end of the cemetery, and I'm going to make a right, and then I'm going to follow the circle halfway until I reach the back end of the cemetery, or the back gates of the cemetery. I'm here to see Morgan Earp's final resting place, and his grave is located in the southwest corner of the cemetery. It's under a large tree, and the stone is fairly large. The headstone is fairly large, so it's pretty easy to find. Well, it's another windy day in the cemetery, so I'm not sure you're going to be able to hear everything I say, but I'm going to give it a try. So I don't know if you can see the headstone. This is the back of the headstone of Morgan Earp. He's one of the Earp brothers, the famous Earp brothers from the Wild West back in the 1800s. You may have seen or heard of him in movies like Tombstone or Gunfight at the OK Corral. He, along with his brothers, have been the topic of numerous movies and books and TV shows over the years. They were all U.S. Marshals, and Morgan here was assassinated in Tombstone, Arizona. His older brother I visited earlier this morning at a cemetery not far from here. Their most famous brother, Wyatt Earp, is buried in Northern California, and I do plan to visit his gravesite sometime in the future, and I'll bring that to you. I'll do a tour of his grave once I'm able to get up to Northern California, up to Colma, California, which is just south of San Francisco. It's a place I've been wanting, a city I've been wanting to go for many years. It's called the City of the Dead because there are more people buried there than actually living there. If you visit grave sites and cemeteries around the country or the world, then you're probably familiar with Colma. And for some reason, I haven't been there yet, so it's definitely high on my list of places to visit in the very near future. But for today, I'm here visiting the grave sites of the two Earp brothers buried here in San Bernardino, California. As you can see from the headstone, Morgan Earp was assassinated in Tombstone, Arizona in 1882, which was just a few months following the shootout at the OK Corral. A number of the surviving outlaws and their friends decided to seek revenge for the outlaws who were killed at the OK Corral by Morgan Earp and his brothers Wyatt and Virgil and Doc Holliday. If you're not familiar with the story, you can certainly hear all about it in the many books and movies and TV shows that have depicted the story over the years. On screen, over the years, Morgan Earp has been portrayed by actors Sam Melville, Lyndon Ashby, DeForest Kelley, Ray Boyle, Bill Paxton, and others. Some stories just really capture all of our imaginations, and the legends just never die. And as you can see on the back side, his headstone was donated by the Southern California Paraders Association back in the 1990s to help keep his life and legend alive for many more years to come. Right behind Morgan Earp's gravestone is this gravestone or headstone memorial to the great train wreck of 1907. It was donated by the Colton Museum and Historical Society, and I happen to notice that one of the names on the stone here is Larry R. Delina. And coming in to the cemetery, I noticed his large headstone, which I'll show you in just a few minutes. The noise that you hear in the distance is the 10 freeway, or the San Bernardino freeway, that you can actually see from the cemetery. Running alongside of the freeway are probably some of the busiest train tracks in the country. Now I'm going to drive back to the front gates for all of you who are interested in seeing what the rest of the cemetery looks like, and so you can see the entire loop. I guess it's because I had never heard of this cemetery before, and it's a little bit out in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't really expecting it to be very interesting, but just the opposite. It's very small, but there are lots of really beautiful headstones and statuary and what appear to be really interesting stories. One of the headstones that caught my eye was this one here, Delina. Now, at the very bottom, you'll notice on the left it says GTE, and on the bottom right it says B of A. So I thought there must really be a story here. So I looked him up online, Larry Delina, and I wasn't able to find any information at all, which is very surprising considering that he was one of the members of the Sons of Italy and a member of the Colton Museum and Historical Society, who donated the memorial to the great train wreck of 1907. So if any of you watching this video today know anything about Larry Delina, please leave it in the comments section below. I looked up online nearly every gravestone that I came across that seemed very large and historic and intricate and like there must be a story behind the headstone, but I wasn't able to find a single one. So I'm hoping that someone from the Colton Museum and Historical Society will be watching and can share some of the stories below this video. One of my favorite things to see in cemeteries are benches with messages. And this has to be one of the best messages I've seen. And here's another bench with a really nice message. And this bench with an angel sitting on it seems very inviting and comforting. Just inside the front gate to the left-hand side is this angel statue and headstone. It's the headstone of two very young boys who died one day apart from each other. So even though this cemetery is very small, there seem to be many stories just waiting to be told. I really hope some of the viewers watching will know some of the stories behind these gravestones and will share them here in the comment section. Next to the fountain is this very eye-catching headstone with the Santa Fe Railroad logo. From a distance, I assumed it was some type of Santa Fe Railroad memorial, but then I looked on the opposite side and noticed that it belonged to a military veteran. So I looked him up online, but I wasn't able to find anything out about him. So I assumed that he was either a very serious railroad buff, and I know there are a lot of them out there, or that he worked for the Santa Fe Railroad. The historic Santa Fe Railroad Depot in Colton, California, is located just a few miles away from this cemetery. As always, thanks for joining me today on my cemetery video tour. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please leave a comment down below. I always love hearing comments from viewers. And share with a friend, give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. And I will see you next time.